You did everything they told you to do. Got the job, worked hard, saved a little, so why does a middle-class life feel like it keeps slipping through your fingers? The middle class used to be the whole point of the deal. One steady income, a home, a vacation, a comfortable retirement. For a lot of people, that math no longer adds up. And here is the part nobody likes to say out loud. The middle is not just struggling, it is literally shrinking. So let's look at exactly where it went. First, the proof, because feelings are not data. Back in 1971, about 6 in 10 American adults lived in middle-income households. Today, that share has fallen to barely half. The single biggest economic group in the country has been quietly leaking members for 50 straight years. Now, fewer people in the middle is not automatically a tragedy. The question is, which direction they moved, up to comfort or down to strain? And the honest answer is both. Some climbed into the upper tier, many slid into the lower one. The middle did not just shrink, it split apart. To understand the squeeze, you have to separate two things that feel the same in your bank account but behave completely differently: wages and assets. A wage is what they pay you for your time. An asset is something you own that grows on its own, like a home, stocks, or a business. Keep that difference in mind. Here's the engine of the whole problem. For decades, the value workers produce has climbed steeply, while the typical paycheck has barely moved. Adjusted for inflation, the wage of a typical worker has grown only a little in 50 years. You are producing far more, but your paycheck did not get the memo. Meanwhile, the things wealthy households tend to own took off. Since the early 80s, the stock market has grown many times over, far faster than wages. So picture two people. One sells their time for a paycheck, the other owns a slice of the economy. Over 30 years, those two lives drift miles apart. That is the quiet split. When assets grow faster than wages, the people who already own things pull ahead, and the people who only earn a paycheck fall behind. But stagnant wages are only half the squeeze. Because while your paycheck crawled, the price of the things that actually define middle-class life sprinted. Start with the big one: housing. A home that cost about 3 times a yearly income in the early 80s tells a very different story today. In many cities, that same home now costs closer to 6 or 7 times the typical income. The first rung of the ownership ladder moved out of reach. And housing is not just shelter. For most middle-class families, the home was the asset, the one piece of the growing economy they actually owned. When buying a home slips away, you do not just lose a place to live, you lose your one easy door into the asset side of the economy. Next squeeze: healthcare. Over the last few decades, the cost of staying healthy has risen far faster than general prices, year after year. For a middle-class family, a single serious illness can now wipe out years of careful saving. Health insurance became a monthly cost that rivals rent. Then there is education, the supposed escalator into the middle class. Tuition has outpaced almost everything else, by a lot. So a whole generation borrowed heavily to buy the ticket they were told would secure a middle-class life and started their careers already deep in debt. Notice the pattern: housing, healthcare, and education. The 3 pillars of a middle-class life are exactly the 3 that rose the fastest. These are not luxuries you can simply skip. They are the floor of middle-class life. And when the floor gets this expensive, discipline alone cannot save you. Now add the third force, and this one is structural. The actual jobs in the middle, the steady, decent-paying ones, have been quietly hollowing out. Economists call it job polarization. Work is splitting into high-skill, high-pay roles at the top and low-pay service roles at the bottom. The solid middle-income jobs in between, the ones a person could raise a family on without a fancy degree, are the ones disappearing fastest. 2 big forces drove this. The first is automation. Machines and software are best at exactly the routine, predictable tasks those middle jobs were built on. The second is globalization. Many of those steady jobs were moved to places where the same work could be done for far less. Neither force is evil. Cheaper goods and powerful tools have real benefits. But the gains landed unevenly, and the middle absorbed most of the pain. So, a worker who loses a solid middle job often cannot find another like it. They get pushed down into lower pay service work, not up into the high skill tier. Put the 3 forces together and the squeeze becomes obvious. Flat wages, soaring essentials, and shrinking middle jobs all pressing in at once. Now the key question: as the middle emptied out, who moved up and who moved down? Because the answer is not random. The households that moved up overwhelmingly had one thing in common: they owned assets, a home that appreciated, stocks that compounded, a business that grew. The households that slid down mostly relied on a single paycheck, rented their housing, and had little cushion when costs jumped or a job vanished. This is why the wealth gap looks so extreme. The top tier holds a large majority of the nation's wealth, while the bottom half holds only a sliver. And it compounds. Owners earn returns on what they own, then reinvest those returns. Earners spend their paycheck just keeping the lights on. The gap widens itself. So is the middle class just doomed? No, because every force we covered can be answered. Let's talk about what actually rebuilds it. On the policy side, the levers are clear. Make the essentials cheaper, build more housing, rein in healthcare and tuition costs so paychecks stretch further. Rebuild the middle of the job market too. Apprenticeships, skilled trades, and training that lead to solid middle income work without crushing debt. But policy moves slowly, and you live now. So here's the part you can actually control starting this year. The middle class was never really about your income. It was about owning a piece of the economy. The escalator runs on assets, not just wages. You do not need a fortune to start. Turning even a small, steady slice of your paycheck into assets that grow moves you toward the side that pulls ahead. The squeeze is real, and it was not your fault. But the path back to a stable middle-class life runs straight through ownership no matter how small you start. Understand the machine, and you stop being squeezed by it. That is exactly what we do here. We hand you the cheat sheet to the money machine. This is Brainonomics.